Hey everybody, Professor Snart checking in. Close to one last time here as we get right to the final push in our 11-week 1102 course. So we are at, in some ways, I don't want to say the most difficult, but certainly, the most sort of crunch time, right? But the end is really close. So, if you've done great work so far, you made it through these 7+ weeks up to now. One last effort here to get our final essay in and really put your all into it and do the best you can on this, the last assignment. And it's really the last assignment in not just our 1102, but really the whole composition sequence, which for most people is like an 1101, 1102. In academic circles, it's sometimes referred to as first-year composition, so the whole sequence, as if someone would take like the 1101 in the traditional 16-week, 1102 traditional 16-week, across really like a whole first year, a fall and then a spring semester. So we really are, for many people, at the capstone of not just our singular 1102 course, but really that whole sequence. So it's good to, if you're feeling just sort of like ground down a little bit, you're busy with life, you're busy with other classes, right? You're kind of crunch time with ours. Just think of that. You're almost across the finish line for what is not just our course, but like a much longer sequence that you've been through. Okay, so just to catch us up then on our remaining due dates, and I'm recording this on Monday morning. So we finished up Unit 10, so we had an opportunity to conference individually. We could talk through ideas, look at drafts, look at outlines, that kind of thing. The discussion board here had you updating us on how your topic and thesis were coming along, your primary text choices, but also secondary sources. And so one of the things to note kind of is that the grade that you're going to get for the discussion board here is largely a participation grade, and obviously some effort into developing like a sort of post and response or set of replies. But there still might be problems with your topic, or you still might be missing pieces. And if you acknowledge that, then you'll still get more or less full points for the post. So even if you haven't got all your sources, for example, it's not like I deduct points for that, as long as you're participating in the discussion board. The other thing to say is that if there are still problems with your thesis, again, I might address them in a comment, but it won't be reflected on the grade. So if you get a high grade in this discussion board, it doesn't necessarily mean that everything is in place. We kind of agree on that as a class, that people are still filling in pieces as we put the essay together, certainly back on Thursday. And now we turn around to Monday, which is today. So we have the first due date in our peer exchange setup, which I'll take us into in just a second. So you're posting your essay. Again, the more you've got done, the better, because you get more complete feedback that way. And then you're providing feedback to everybody who posted on time in your group by Thursday, which gives you a couple of days to refine the paper, right? Go through it, actually leave it for a little while is my truthful advice, if you can, if time allows, and then come back to it sort of with a fresh set of eyes, finish it up, right? Last little edits and that kind of thing. You can always be in touch with me if you still have questions, but then you're submitting it no later than Monday. And that's sort of a hard deadline for us because that's where the course ends. So there really is no after that date. So you really have to treat that one as the final. And of course, if you feel like it's done and you're ready to just hand it off, then you can certainly submit it before that Monday, March 13th deadline, which is basically a week away. Okay, so let's take a quick look then, specifically at the peer discussion that's set up, and then a very brief look at the final unit, although it's mostly just submitting your essay. All right, so like I've mentioned before, peer exchange can be like a hit or miss, I'm sure, in some people's experience. And for me, it often falls flat or falls short if I just put you in pairs or groups, told you exchange papers and provide feedback. It's sort of this open-ended thing. Maybe what you get is good. Maybe it's just affirming what's already on paper, whether it's actually good and correct or not, because people like to be supportive. And maybe it's not. There's not much effort behind it at all. It's just sort of untargeted and loose and not very helpful. So that's the worst case scenario for peer feedback, is it just fills time, but it doesn't really get you some actual feedback to work with. So we're going to use primarily this checklist, which you'll find in just a file here. So I want you to download the checklist. We're just in pairs, right, given our numbers and our timing here. So you're going to download the checklist and fill it out for the person who's in your group. And you'll notice that it's just a series of kind of questions, basic things like, is this present in the essay? Is it not present in the essay? And what I hope you'll see is that the checklist is really nothing new. It's sort of a compilation of all of the stuff, or most of the stuff, that we've covered in the class so far. So again, our final capstone kind of big point assignment is not somehow divorced or different or this new thing that we're all of a sudden doing. It's a final assessment of what we've covered in the course. So why would it have new stuff or be different? So you'll see things about thesis statement, use of sources, clear topic sentences, just basic stuff that we've done in our first essay, but really in kind of micro format throughout the term. So fill out the checklist. Mostly it is literally just checking boxes or filling in short answer type things. I'm certainly inviting you to provide some larger feedback, sort of a paragraph maybe about strengths of the essay, particular areas the author might want to focus on for revision edits, or maybe just questions you have as a reader. So you can certainly give that fuller, more narrative like feedback, but it's really the checklist here that I hope will make this peer review like a successful one, targeted feedback. So it's not just provide random feedback, but a much more specific kind of reflection on your essay that you can then use to edit and revise. And even if you're confused at that point, you can reach out to me. That's why we have that gap there between getting this feedback and turning it in, that you still have time to work on the essay. Okay, so our posting date then is again March 6th, so end of the day on Monday. We'll say end of the day. Give people a little bit more time. If, however, by very late on Monday or Tuesday morning you realize that your group member has not posted, so you're sort of left without a partner, I'm going to invite you to just join a different group, but it has to be basically Tuesday morning, first thing Tuesday morning. Just go ahead and put yourself into a group. Instead of, you don't have to reach out to me, because then I have to wait to get the email and get back to you and reconfigure the groups. Just move forward. So if somebody doesn't submit their essay in a particular group, that's going to leave one person out. That person just join a group, which means the other group members should sort of look on Tuesday morning or later in the day on Tuesday to see if someone has joined, and that means that now you're responsible for providing feedback to that person. And again, it sort of says, or it's implied here, that you only do feedback for people who've posted on time, but clearly if someone has joined your group at the 11th hour because their partner didn't really come through, we're going to allow that latitude for someone to join a different group, post their paper, and then that group of 3. Now, clearly, if you're going to join another group, make sure that, and I doubt this is going to happen, but maybe, make sure that it's not already a group that somebody else has joined. So I suppose that could, by total fluke, happen, but it's kind of unlikely. So we don't want to go from partners to all of a sudden we have a group of like 4 people, So we'll try to spread people out. And truthfully, at this point, I'm hoping, thinking, trusting that everyone will in fact post their essay on time, and thus we'll have just our working partners here. So there's a little kind of wiggle room on the due date if your group member doesn't come through. And then you're providing feedback, So you're reposting the checklist for everybody, filled out by you, probably with a little paragraph note about strengths, areas of to focus on for revision. And then you take that feedback, you continue revising, editing your essay, think about going to our writing center, either physically on campus or make a virtual appointment. Again, sort of treat that as a peer feedback. It's not exactly peer, but you can do that targeted editing, so even use the checklist. Clearly, you can use the checklist on your own essay, so you'll get it back from your partner, but you can obviously look at your own essay for these things. And again, really notice how the checklist isn't anything new. It's stuff we've already covered in the class, and now, of course, if we were in, like my example is always history, if we had taken our equivalent of about 15 weeks worth of history class, we learn a bunch of dates and facts and information, and now the assessment, the final exam comes. In our case, it's a final essay, but it's a final assessment. It works the same way. Have you learned the material that we covered in the class, and can you apply it, in our case, in this essay assessment situation? So again, nothing magical, nothing mysterious. It's all pretty transparent. When it comes to things like MLA citation, again, really important for our purposes as the capstone of the research course, but again, as the capstone project in this first year composition sequence. Use the resources we have here, use the website. You can reach out to me if you're still unclear, unsure, and it's largely just a matter of following the models, using the examples. So again, you don't have to really, there's no trick to it. It might be confusing if it's sort of new to you, but something we've done a few times in class. Again, just follow those examples and models. One last note, this hardly ever comes up, but I'll just mention it. We did cover plagiarism back in, I think, Unit 2, really early in our course. We kind of addressed it. It's no big secret. People pretty much know what it is. As I said back then, when I run into it, it usually seems to be a case, not that someone starts on day one of a course like this saying, oh, I'm definitely going to plagiarize that final essay. This will be so easy. Usually, we get about to this point, you maybe haven't made as much progress as you want, you got other stuff going on, you just sort of get nervous, backed into a corner a little bit, and sometimes people make a wrong choice and they sort of borrow, and I'm doing the air quotes here, they plagiarize from the web or from whatever. So our Blackboard system runs everybody's essay through a plagiarism checker just called Safe Assign. So it spits out a report that shows similarity between the essay submitted and a billion sources on the web or whatever. Basically uses Google to Google your essay, in addition to searching through academic databases and stuff that Google doesn't have direct access to. So it's not a surefire thing. It's not like if it flags the essay, I automatically impose the plagiarism penalty, which is you fail the course, because at this point there's just no excuse for it. But it does draw my attention, and then I, as the human being in the equation, get into it and take a look. Now, again, it's very rare that people will do this, especially for our kind of final where it's a comparison essay that you've developed as a topic yourself. But again, if you've visited some websites to do some of that kind of background reading, if you want to call it that, be sure you didn't, again, accidentally, and I'm doing the air quotes again, cut and paste some stuff from GradeSaver or wherever you might have found it, and it accidentally, air quotes, gets into your essay. That's plagiarism, and that's like the big thing we just cannot do at this point in our course, but really that whole first year composition sequence. All right, so there, I've said it, boo, whatever. Let's not worry about it. Okay, so that takes us then to really the end of our course, which, no surprise, you are pretty much just submitting your essay. There's a couple of last minute, revision or even just editing things to look for. Again, pretty much reminders of things that we've covered throughout our class. You're submitting your essay, and there is a final course evaluation that you'll see in our units list here. It's anonymous, it's ungraded, just getting some of your feedback about your experience in the course. Positive, things you might like to see different. I'm always interested to see people's feedback. But of course, that's just, leave it to the end or take 5 minutes. It's not a big deal. Okay, so peer exchange coming up, posting, providing feedback, and then submitting no later than that final due date. And for many folks, if you've gotten an essay together for this, you're probably going to get some useful feedback here. You can turn that around, I would say, in a day or two and be ready to submit well before that Monday, March 13th. And then your 8-week term, at least for this class, is pretty much done. Okay, so as always, stay on top of these due dates. One last push across the finish line here. And if you have questions, concerns, anything going on, always be in touch with me.